We just spent 30 days in Melbourne renovating one of the most disgusting houses I've ever seen with our baby boy Freddy. You guys have had tons of questions from part 1, but let's get into answering them and show you the before and after, final numbers, as well as a whole bunch of the fun stuff. If you're interested in building a property portfolio through renovating in Australia, you're going to enjoy this episode. And if you've already watched part number 1, you know exactly what you're in store for. So let's break this episode up into 5 sections. Kitchen breakdown and free flight hack, crazy cost-effective value adds to the exterior, permits, walls and floor plans, you do not want to miss that section, what the equity uplift really looked like, and the final numbers. So let's start answering your questions and more right now. Can't wait to see the caboodle kitchen for $8.5K, adding serious dollars to the value of the home. Also, Freddy is cute as. What a great traveler. Guessing you guys got those flybys to velocity points going? It's the best hack going round. So let's talk business class trips, kitchen costs, and one key problem we had to solve to actually bring this kitchen together. When we actually designed the kitchen, the Bunnings guy was so disgusted with the state of the house after doing all the measure ups that he wouldn't sit down inside. So sitting in his car with a laptop on the dash, we designed the kitchen together like curbside out the front of the house. To be honest, I don't really blame him. As investors, we always talk cost effectiveness. So you might be wondering, why would you even bother with like an island setup? Why not just leave it as an L shape, make it cheaper? And the reason is adding the island adds a huge amount of perceived value for actually a really little cost, which I'll get into exactly those costs in a minute. Without it, it looks okay and it's functional, but as a family home, it makes a huge difference to the look and gives extra storage. And we want tenants that are actually happy with this place, making it home for a longer time. So as investors, it still makes sense. Plus, remember the comp sales we're aiming for in part 1? To break into the 7s, we needed to make sure that it was a nicer kitchen as well. But again, doing it cost effectively. So I'm going to let you in an amazing hack with this. We actually use wall cabinets for the kitchen island.
Stuff can be 2 things.
So the cabinets being 400mm deep actually achieves a couple of things. Firstly, it keeps the island a little bit narrower, meaning you can fit it into so many spaces. We've actually done this in a unit before. It also means we can use the timber panels for the countertop, which are 600mm deep, which mean they're the perfect depth to give some overhang, meaning you can actually still sit underneath it like a breakfast bar. Then waterfalling the bench tops down the sides gives it this really nice look. And pro tip, if you're going to do this with like waterfall down the edges, make sure you do it as a miter cut, or also like a 45-degree cut. So you'll actually have seamless corners, because when you just like cut, butt it up against it, yeah, it works, but it's missing something. Google it and you'll totally see what I mean. So just how cost effective is this island? So the 2 cabinets are $275.30, 2 timber panels at $178, the 4 doors on the front, $280.40, the 4 handles on the doors, $17.40, and about $10 worth of benchtop sealer. You absolutely want to make sure these benchtops are sealed correctly. Melamine panel for the front at $39.58 to cover the back of the cabinets, which is so much cheaper than spending like $300-400 on end panels for spaces that just don't really need it.
Oh yeah!
So our total materials for the kitchen was $800.68. This is why I'm so passionate about doing this correctly, because look at the picture now. If you just have an L-shaped kitchen there, like it looks okay. As soon as you put that island in, that adds way more than $800 worth of perceived value. And this is our job as renovators, to make sure that we're adding as much perceived value as possible, but controlling that cost, doing it for as little as possible while still keeping the quality intact. Oh, and a big shout out to Lena from Bunnings as well. She really went the extra mile for us when issues came up. I highly recommend getting to know your local trade teams at Bunnings. Speaking of Bunnings, how does this get me from Australia to Tokyo business class? I feel like this was like one of the most commented questions. This is actually the first time we've realized this hack. And I say we, Bianca discovered this, like full credit to Bianca. I'm not the points hacker the same way she is. She's amazing at this. So let me explain how it works. So the total cost of the kitchen was, this is just like materials, $8,609.92. Now, the awesome thing about this hack is it's not just for kitchens, which we took full advantage of. As well as our kitchen costs, we spent about another 10 grand at Bunnings on things like tiles, AC units, bathrooms, like just all the stuff. Now, what Bianca would do is she would go to Qantas Marketplace before heading to Bunnings and buy gift cards. If you have a credit card that's attached to points, you can actually amplify this even more, which we do. But financial disclaimer, do not just go and get a credit card for points. This is something we're able to handle very diligently, so it works for us. So normally, if you're spending $8,600 at Bunnings, how many Qantas points do you get?
You get nothing. You lose Good day, sir.
But if you buy gift cards with 3 points per dollar, like if this doesn't cost you anything more to do, and there's no debt attached to it, you're just spending the money from a different place, that gets you 25,800 points. So we're already flying from Sydney to Brisbane, business class for free, and still have points left over, which is already pretty cool, but we're not done yet. Because this doesn't just apply to kitchens. Like this isn't just literally a kitchen hack. With what we spent on the rest of the house combined, we ended up with almost 75,000 points. And a few sideways glances from like the staff when you're walking up with a blue pencil case just filled with thousands of dollars of Bunnings gift cards. Because like the maximum one you can get is $500. You can't just get umpteen $1,000 ones. So for the extra a couple of minutes it takes to buy them, and well, it probably takes about 10 minutes to scan them. Again, thank you, Bianca. You were the one sitting at the register doing this. But the effort versus reward, this is 100% worth looking into. And we are so looking forward to this trip, which we've got to take before Freddy turns 2. Otherwise, we've got to get him a business class seat as well, which I'm sure he'd enjoy. Anyway, back to kitchens. I think you guys are really going to enjoy some of the detail coming up when we actually break down room by room materials cost, like to the T. So you can get such a better understanding of what a renovation like this costs in 2025. But before we get into that, I still had one big kitchen problem that we needed to solve. So our installer got it to pretty much 90% of the way there. And then they ran out of time and couldn't come back for ages. So me being the impatient person that I am, I just did it myself with Freddy. And it was all the simple bits, apart from what I'm about to tell you. Typically, when you're joining bench tops, you use what's imaginatively named a bench top joiner. Generally between 3 and 4 to make sure you've actually got like a really nice seal there and they're together. Our issue was where the bench tops were joining was right where the sink was. Because the sink was so wide, you couldn't physically fit, like we couldn't even bush mechanics this in, you couldn't actually physically fit the bench top joiners in there. So it being a wet point and a join point and not having enough room, we had to solve this one. And we couldn't just like move it down, because otherwise we're just moving the problem down towards the stove or above the dishwasher. Like it wasn't really going to solve it. Plus then we'd need to replane and potentially actually just get new bench tops again. Like, which if that's what we had to do, we'd do it. But you put your thinking cap on, you use pair framework. Yeah, there's normally a simpler solution to that. So as soon as I found out, we were back in Adelaide, B, Freddy and I literally walked down to Bunnings after work one night and just started looking at all of the different sinks, thinking, what else can we do? Because if we can't make the bench top bigger, can we make the sink like narrower, smaller? And after a quick video chat with Ollie Chung as well, talking the issue through with him, the best option actually just came from down the road from the house in Melbourne at this place called Morningstar. The sink they had was, I think it's like 430 or 440 mil wide opposed to like the 480 something. So it gave us just enough room to be able to actually join these bench tops together. So after putting bench top joiners in, glue and putty, seal, everything that we're supposed to be doing, we were left with a kitchen we were pretty happy with. And it's something that I just want to really leave with you guys as well, because like when I first got told about it, I think I was actually dealing with a different problem at work and it was just like, oh, just another thing. Like it was annoying, but realistically, whenever you break anything like this down, there's like literally the solution was get a smaller sink. And if I wasn't so impatient, I could have just waited for the guy to come back and do it. So you don't have to DIY it like I did. I just wanted to get things done. But the best thing to do with this is just stay calm, keep following the framework. When things get real tricky, the solution will come as long as you keep doing that. Which we had other problems that I'm gonna unpack and share with all you guys coming up soon, especially about the wall. But first, let's talk about the exterior. I knew doing the exterior correctly was so important to actually get right. Because whilst we have to do it cost effectively, it still has to be done. And this was something that I learnt the hard way on my very first Reno project. The valuer actually told me, which is quite unusual. A lot of the time they won't actually tell you this. I think he saw the ambition, the push that I had, and he just told me straight up, he's like, I could have given you like more than 10% extra if you had have just done basic landscaping at the front and back. And I didn't, like, because I wasn't educated then. I was just flying by the seat of my pants, which is a very expensive way to do it. So with this project, we know we needed neat and tidy, but still cost effective because we're doing this for investment. And one of the cool things about doing the exterior is it's not a licensed trade the same way. Like so much of it, if you want to DIY, if you're on like super low wage, like I was when I started, you can easily roll up your sleeves and do this and save a ton of money. And with Freddy on the team now, there was a lot less DIY on our side. So we spent $2,640 in labor, $650 in paint. Then we used $1,650 on materials, such as like plants, lawn, bits and pieces, all that kind of stuff. And then really the rest of it was just tidying up. And this is really what you got to remember, again, when you're doing it for investment. Like I recently spoke with Darren Palmer, one of the judges from the block, which I'm sure we'll link the episode somewhere here. And I was so pleasantly surprised that even chatting with him, he kept referring back to comp sales, comp sales, comp sales. It's the same thing here. And a lot of our comp sales, we're just saying neat, tidy, a little bit of an outdoor area, don't get carried away. So that's exactly what we did. Cracking out the angle grinder to take all of these ugly old roller shutters off, which were all broken and gonna cost way too much to get fixed. Clearing paths, pressure washing, knocking out old bits and pieces of whatever was left around, but then deciding what to do with this ugly fence. Now we've had a few of you guys ask, where do you spend the money and where don't you? Which is such a good question to ask when you're renovating for profit. And I think this fence is probably one of the perfect examples to actually explain that. Let me walk you through how to make these kinds of decisions. So option one, we could spend some time cutting the whole fence out with angle grinders, then filing down, disposing of everything, which has got a big time and cost element to it already. Option two, we could cut down just the mesh section of it, keep the posts there and then replank everything. But because we've got about 45 meters worth of frontage, that was just under $1,747 in materials alone. So a good way to explain this is a question that we always ask ourselves that's actually inspired by the British Olympic rowing team from the Sydney 2000 Olympics.
We had one very simple question we were always asking ourselves and each other. And that very simple question was, will it make the boat go faster?
And if it did, the answer was yes. If it didn't, well, they didn't do it. We ask ourselves a very similar question. Will this add more value than it costs? If the answer is no, leave it. If the answer is yes, move forward with it. So investing $1,700 in making the fence look slightly nicer, considering the demographics and the comps, wasn't worth it. But for around the same money, we could put another split system in the bedroom, which was something that our expert team actually did advise us. Not only would tenants be happy to pay more for that, but you'll also get a better quality of tenant, people are happy to stay longer. It starts ticking all the boxes of adding more value than it costs. But we still had this ugly yellow fence. So that left us with our last option was to paint it. We had paint left over from the exterior of the house paint. Because we painted it a darker color, now it kind of just almost blends in, and making it more invisible instead of this yellow statement there for a few $100s was actually the most cost-effective option. So our total spend on the exterior was $4,940. And knowing how much extra value a nice tidy exterior costs, this is $5,000 that gives a much healthier return on investment. And the cool thing is, if we actually did most of the painting and everything ourselves, it would have been more like around $1,800, $2,000. It's an awesome option if you're doing this on a shoestring budget. And it's what Bianca and I did on our Brisbane renovation. She painted all the inside, I painted all the outside. It saved us a ton of cash. We got that one done in 10 days, but it's a different story. But just to really hit this one home, thinking about the exterior, going from this to this, for like a couple of grand doing it DIY or $5,000 getting other people in to do it, it's such a huge difference. And just in case you're listening on iTunes or Spotify, head on over to the YouTube channel so you can totally see the before and afters. In a moment, let's start answering your questions about walls, floor plans, and permits. But just before I do, I understand some of you guys have already got like Trevor Rainbolt guessing skills.
This is Russia, like Western Russia.
And have potentially already figured out where the property is. Whilst it's not about hiding anything, we just didn't want to disclose the address, more so out of the respect and privacy for the tenants, because they actually live there, like it's home for them. And we want to make sure we're doing the right thing by them. So thank you everyone for respecting that. Let's talk about permits, plans, and wall removals. Another massive key to this question, does it add more value than it costs, was opening up the living space. So many of you guys asked for a floor plan, but because we bought it off market, we just actually didn't have a floor plan. So let's get to talking more about this wall, which absolutely came with its set of challenges that we're gonna open up for you guys. Because this isn't just sharing all the wins and pretending to be perfect. This is about being real and sharing an experience so you guys can learn from it too. So the first question, how much wall should we actually remove? So you can tell I'm not an architect, but again, if you're on iTunes or Spotify, head on over to the YouTube channel, you'll be able to see this. This is a basic sketch of what the floor plan actually looked like. This is what we're working with because we didn't have a floor plan. So the first option we had was we looked at opening up like the entire space. So this way we'd take all of the wall out in the entry section, all of the wall out between the living and dining and kitchen, and this little section out here. And this is obviously going to take out our doors and everything, which at first sounds kind of cool. Yeah, it'd be massive. But then when you think about it more, one, it's going to add so much more cost because there's a lot more support that needs to go in. And two, it kind of almost feels a little bit apartment-like because now when you're walking in, you are literally walking straight into seeing a kitchen, a living room, a dining, like everything's kind of there. And if you've got like a massive space, maybe that works. But for this, we actually thought it would be more of a detractor than an attractive addition. So our next choice was to actually just take out just this wall right here. But then it opened it up, but also just kind of left this wall on the left-hand side, like just kind of chilling there. And then it's kind of, whilst it opened up the room, it also still added divide to it, so that didn't quite make sense either. Plus, not only that, but the flow of this now also doesn't quite make sense. So you're kind of entering in from there, entering in from there. We've now broken this section up here, so it's kind of like taking the wall out to try and add a little bit of value, but it feels like the actual livability of the property is just kind of pulled into question a little bit. So we wanted to make sure that there was still nice flow and it made sense in this room as well. Which brings us to what we actually ended up choosing, which was getting rid of this doorway here and actually closing this section off. So then when you walked in, you actually had a hallway that you walked into. So this gives you a little bit more space for a bit of art. You can coat racks, a nice piece of furniture, whatever you want to do. But there's actually an entry to this house now, which then brought us back to the wall, knowing that if we only remove this section, we just have this bit sort of sticking out on the side. So removing all of it all the way across was then going to give us a nice connection between the living room and the dining room. And knowing that we wanted to do an island here also gave us some nice space to actually place an island and have a clear picture of where furniture would go. Like a dining table would more than likely go here. A couch would probably go around here. You'd have another couch around here. You'd have a TV here. So you could actually be standing in the kitchen and you could watch the kids. You could watch the TV. Those lines of sight aren't broken. Plus you've also got a little bit of extra wall space here as well, meaning that the fridge could then nicely go here. Swinging the door open isn't going to swing the door into someone trying to walk through the door. And finally, leaving this door here, because we did actually talk about completely taking this out. But the two reasons we wanted to leave the door here were noise. If someone is in here and someone else is asleep back here, closing this door off is going to make it a little bit more livable. The other is heating and cooling. If you're sitting in the living room, I can't remember if we put a 9 kilowatt, like we put a big air conditioner in there. It's good and it could totally go down the hallways as well. But realistically, it's going to do this space much nicer. So it gives the tenants a better livability aspect. Happier tenants, longer term tenants. It opens this whole space up. So now this is all working together here, which again, that's one of the things that brings us into that higher level of comp sales. And it was also more cost effective in terms of labor for opening up this entire space, like option 1. So that covers off more of how we actually chose how much wall to remove. Now let's get into the tricky stuff. So the answer is yes, absolutely. And we want to share everything with you guys. So the people generally involved behind like removing a structural wall like this is your qualified builder, your building surveyor, and your engineer. And you might find slight variations from state to state in terms of the names of the professionals, the exact process, but to overly simplify it, that's kind of the general gist. But it's even the variations in how professionals interpret the process. That's what we're going to talk about now. It is the biggest learning I want everyone to take from this. You're about to find out why. We used a qualified builder to get the job done. We used them before, they do great work. They took care of the whole process last time, paperwork, permits, planning, like everything. This time, there was a miscommunication. When it came time to collate all the paperwork, certificates, compliance, all that kind of stuff, which, side note, very useful tip, you definitely want to do this during a reno. It'll make your life so much easier down the track. To have things like your gas compliance, electrical compliance, waterproofing certificates, like again, depending on what state you're in, but even down to things like manuals for the new appliances that you actually put in. Pro tip, as soon as you buy something, take a photo of the manual when you unbox it. Otherwise, a few years later, you'll be like, yeah, what kind of oven is that again? It's a first world problem, but it's a problem and it'll make your life a lot easier. But back to the miscommunication. So we were under the impression from our previous dealings with the builder that everything was taken care of. However, we were about to find out they did not. And something that's really important to remember on projects is people are people. Everyone makes mistakes, but when a mistake is made on your project, it becomes priority number 1 to fix. If you've seen part 1, you'll remember the pairs framework. Problem, effect, alternative, reorder. So we identified the problem pretty quick. We didn't have the right paperwork. What was the effect of this? Not having the right structural certificates in place was potentially going to cause an insurance issue if we ever needed to make a claim down the track. So this was an effect that needed to be taken very seriously. So our alternative choices, and this is the thing, like we actually had no doubt the work was done correctly. The builder was experienced, qualified, and we even had other trades just saying, oh, just leave it, you'll be right. And maybe they were right, maybe we could have just left it. But to me, this is one of those things that, like the potential severity of if something does go wrong, it's not like, oh, here's a little bit of a problem. It's like potential non-insurance claim if there was ever anything structural on the dwelling. I don't think that's a should be right kind of approach that's going to apply here. So alternative 2 was to obtain whatever retrospective sign-off we needed to make sure everything was compliant. So after reordering all of our different choices, we went down the path of retrospective sign-off. And to begin with, this was a mess. Like we've built the portfolio on cosmetic renovation, heavy cosmetic renovation. We're not structural renovators. I haven't developed rows of townhouses before. And when we started talking to building surveyors and engineers on like basically getting everything signed off and getting all the paperwork fixed up, we were both blown away how much interpretational swing there was.
It's actually, I'm not even mad. That's amazing.
Like you'd think the building code would be like 2 + 2 is 4. This, you do this, and that is the outcome. It is not like that at all. It's like 2 + 2 equals smiley face to someone, and then it equals 4 to someone else, and then someone else it equals -7. And you're like, what is going on? There is so much interpretation, and some of the prices were massive. In some cases, it was looking like it was going to cost us about $15,000 to rectify this mistake just for the paperwork side of things, which kind of gave us the feeling that maybe some of these people just actually didn't want the job. So the fact that there's so much interpretation around this, like I'm positive we're going to get comments on this video telling us that the way that we did do it was actually incorrect. That's how much interpretation there is. But this is the process that we were advised by a professional structural engineer and building surveyor to make sure everything was above board. The building surveyor advised us that if we could get a structural engineer to inspect the works, as long as everything was compliant, they could sign off on what's called an R126. This would be sufficient to demonstrate the works had been done correctly, which again, that wasn't what we're in debate about. We just needed to make sure that we had the paperwork to prove it, which was backed up by the engineer, because once they came out and inspected all the work, they were happy to give us a report and sign off on all R126 to say, yes, everything is done correctly, completely solving our problem and costing more like $1,000 opposed to like $10,000 or $15,000 and way overcomplicating things. And again, just to go a little level deeper here, if you're serious about renovating, this is really important stuff to understand. Like some of the building surveyors we even spoke to said we needed permits for like the cosmetic stuff, like the bathrooms and kitchens. But then we talked to others that said like, of course, no, you don't need that. And it wasn't their opinion, it was the way they interpreted the legislation differently. Same rules, different interpretation. It's crazy, right? So just to be covered, like because we're publicizing everything we're doing, we actually paid the building surveyor to actually drawing up a building permit exemption for the bathroom and kitchen. And if you guys want to be extra covered like we do at the moment, then go for it. But the thing that I just really want to leave you with is if you talk to a building surveyor, an engineer, like you basically talk to a professional and they say, nah, this is what you've got to do. I want you to remember how much interpretation. I reckon I've said the word interpretation about 47 times in like the last 5 minutes, but it's so important. How much interpretation there is in this. Don't get disheartened if you find one person, even if they're a professional that's been doing it for 20 years, that says no, or this is going to cost you some huge amount of money. Keep calling around, keep talking to more people that are qualified. Find someone that aligns with your vision. So moral of the story is play with a straight bat and make sure you've got experts on your team that align with your vision. So now let's talk about profit. This is the really interesting thing about value perception, and it's something that I learned from being a real estate agent for such a long time, is there is a huge swing. So we got a few appraisals and evaluation, and unfortunately the reval had to get done before the project was actually 100% finished, which is not ideal. I do not recommend you doing this. So like handyman's still there. I think there was doors off and there's a couple of guys working, like everything's getting finished. It wasn't actually finished when they walked through. We were just under the pump to get the refi finished for other reasons. But I'm here to tell you, don't do it that way. It is not ideal and your val will come in lower than it actually sits. Putting a granny flat on the other side, which also means we're getting evaluation done like partway through a big project, because that whole like, what is it, like a third of the block is basically just like mess at the moment, which is one of the reasons our valuation came in at $700,000. But agents' appraisals came in, one at 750, which I'd like to be true, but I actually think it's probably sitting more around the others. Another one at 700, another one at 730. Whilst the valuation is the most important part when it comes to releasing equity, not the appraisals. Because of the extenuating circumstances on this one, we wanted to give you guys a final breakdown that was actually more realistic to the numbers. Because like I said, I don't recommend getting a val done when stuff isn't finished. It will come in low. So finally, with some end of Reno numbers, we ended up with an uplift where the real value sits of $109,000 $56.53. That's where we know it's really sitting, but because of the unfavorable circumstances around having to get the vow done when we did, the available equity like at the time, $84,056. So a little bit short of the 100K uplift as far as the vow's concerned, but this is one of the things you'll learn as a property investor as well. It's not the last time you get a vow done. And not only that, it's $84,000. Like, it's a win, time to go again. And this was with so much also just working against us. Like, I'll get into it in more detail. So with the purchase price of $540, Reno costs of $75,943 and a total of $615,943. Whether we're looking at like our average appraisal, tipping us over the 100, or our rushed valuation, leaving us at 84,000. Either way, like this project's a win. And we haven't even factored in the third pillar, the market uplift that holding onto a project, the difference between flipping it, is gonna give you over that longer term when you buy it in the right area. Did this a few years ago before Fred joined the team, we would have run this project so much better. And like, I don't wanna hide this, like it is definitely harder to do with a baby. We spent more than we normally would have. It took longer than it normally would have. Like we weren't sleeping properly. You don't make the best decisions when you've been up 5 times during the night. A sleep deprived reno is never going to come out quite as profitable. But something I really want to hit home for you is it still came out profitable. For the rest, I'm going to talk you through like room by room and walk you through the house with a product list, which if you find this helpful, we can totally email it to you as well. And again, if you're listening on iTunes and Spotify, head on over to the YouTube channel. It'll be brought to life a lot more with the visuals. So you'll remember from the end of part 1, this is where it left off. Let's show some before and afters as we talk through this. So the exterior of the property, $4,940. This included tidying everything up, light landscaping work, bit of lawn, few plants, painting of the exterior of the house as well, which just that in itself lifts everything so much. And I know painting bricks is a bit of a market splitter. Some people absolutely hate it. Some people are all for it. But again, renovating for portfolio growth, it works well. I've painted the brickwork on almost every property we've ever done. Next is the wall. Total cost, $2,514. Now that includes the engineering side of things as well. And to me, it's like, this is one of the biggest value adds. Like the difference between having these rooms separated and having everything opened up. I mean, just looking at some before and afters now, like from this to this, looking at it from another angle, from this to this, it's just huge. But like I said, make sure that you've got professionals that align with your vision. The laundry we kept nice and simple. It was actually $1,995 and it was basically just a cleanup. Because there's only some paint, tiles and some flooring going down and a big trough in the side, like it's really not that much. Kitchen, $13,953. Now this is including a lot of the plumbing work, electrical work, and installation. Like there's obviously a lot more that goes into the, whatever it was, 8,600 or so. And whilst I saved a bit of money off of doing like some DIY with that myself, there wasn't really that much that I DIY'd. Like I said, that was more of an impatience thing rather than a cost thing. Bathroom ended up coming to $12,212.47. Now the bathroom is probably the one thing in this project that I'm not unhappy with, but I'm gonna push our design choices a lot more next time. This is something that I've always done. I've kept stuff super simple because it's like this idea of when 10 years time, a nice, simple white bathroom is still gonna look nice, and it will look nice. And it does look nice. The next project, I'm gonna actually lean into a little bit more design, not full-on statement style, because that is when something looks like nice now, but looks terrible in 5 years' time. Because if you're holding for the long term, you don't wanna push it that hard. But finding the balance between the two. General house spend came to $29,192. So this is things like skip bins, air conditioners, gyprocks, internal paints. It's all the stuff that you can't really break down room by room the same way. And as far as our Freddy fund, that was $6,049. I feel like really that was more. That was just like the dollars out of pocket that it cost. And I'm still so happy that we did this with him. And we're gonna continue to do this with him. I know we left tens of thousands of dollars on the table, just in not the best choices, in the slowing down of things, like all that kind of stuff. But again, we did it. It would have been so much easier just to stop. So when we took on this project, we really wanted to prove to ourselves that we could still do this with a baby. It wasn't gonna slow down any of our goals, but Bianca and I still love the idea of proving it can be done. I actually want her to share some of her thoughts on this. We've actually been talking about doing a little bit of a Q&A video, like just sitting down and answering all of your comments. So if you've got a comment and we end up making that video, like chuck it below. And I actually really enjoy that, just sitting down with Bianca, just going full candid, answering everything we can. But I want you guys to hear a bit of B saying this in her own words.
Full transparency, yes, renovating with a newborn was definitely so much more challenging than we thought, and obviously more challenging than any reno projects that we've done in the past. And people did say to us that we were kind of crazy for taking this on, and they actually said renovating with a baby would be completely impossible. But to I guess get a little bit personal, we were told by doctors that having a baby would be impossible. And while flying to the other side of the world and adopting him as an embryo was definitely hard and cost a ton of money, it wasn't impossible. Like, obviously, because I'm holding the little guy, he's here. People talk about impossible and hard as though it's the same word, as though it means the same thing, and it doesn't. I want you guys to understand that impossible and hard are different things. Like with this renovation, it was certainly hard, but it was not impossible. And the payoff, the happiness at the end of that hard is so worth it. It was for the reno and it is for this little guy.
I hope you guys have enjoyed watching our Melbourne reno. The ups, the downs, all of the learnings involved. And if you've still got more questions, like I said, chuck them below. And hopefully B and I will be making that Q&A episode pretty soon. And if you have enjoyed this episode and you're still watching right now, make sure to hit that like button and let us know what you want to see on the next reno video. My name is Todd Sloan. This is the Pizza and Property Podcast. Have yourself an amazing rest of the week and stay awesome.